Good. Second day in helmets only. I think our guys are looking forward to putting on some shoulder pads on Friday. And the intensity always ratchets up when you do that. But overall, I really like the work ethic that I've seen 2 days in. I think our guys have been very businesslike. Seems like this group has a kind of a mature approach. I think there's probably a pretty significant carryover just in terms of, practices and understanding how to practice from last year's team. And especially as late as we practiced, we practiced all the way up till January 9th. And so we got a lot of extra work in, and I think our guys understand how important every opportunity to get better is. And I thought today was a good way to start. And, I thought we executed pretty well on both sides of the ball. I'm encouraged by our speed, and you expect the speed to show up the first couple of days of practice. And I think that you look at the back end of our defense, and there's some new faces back there that those guys seem like they belong. They can all run. They're athletic, and encouraged by some of the stuff I've seen from that group. And then, like the skill. We've got some inside slot type receivers that I've been really impressed with, and thought those guys are all playing well. There's going to be a great competition for playing time at those positions, which always makes you better. So good second day overall.
Coach, give us some idea of the offensive install and what that process is like. How long does it take, guys?
Yeah, it's I think our playbook's probably a little bigger, now than it has been. It's very similar kind of approach. I think there's going to be a little bit more of an emphasis maybe on tempo now than there has been in the past, and and I think that that's a good thing. When you go back and you look at us last year, we operated at a pretty high level consistently when we went fast, and so that was one of the things that we as a staff talked about. I think that our players are comfortable doing that, and I think our quarterbacks are both comfortable doing that. They played in kind of upbeat, fast tempo offenses in high school, and they're comfortable operating in those type of situations. And so, there's always going to be some new stuff, and there's always going to be some adaptation that has to take place, and guys trying to figure out where to line up, and sometimes it looks a little ragged when you're going fast. But I thought overall that it's been good, and we'll continue to install for about 5 or 6 days, and then the installation at that point will kind of start to slow down. It'll be more about getting reps, and a lot of the things fit together. I think the players will quickly understand that it's a different play, but you're building on a base. So you kind of establish a base, and then you start to add on top of that base, and that's how you get to having all the different schemes and variety that you want to have in an offense. And so the big thing again is going to be good for us. It's going to be important for us to get to the point where we have an identity, we're good at something, and we come out of spring ball and we say, okay, these are our best 5, 6 run plays, and these are our best 8 to 10 pass plays, and this is kind of what we're going to hang our hat on.
Is there more on the quarterback this year in this system?
Not really. I think it's pretty similar. I think that I think in some ways it's a little cleaner for those guys, maybe, but there may be a little bit more. So I think it's a little bit of a trade-off, but I think it's going to be similar.
Are you treating this spring like if it ain't broke, don't fix it, or is there something you learned in the title game
No,
that you?
No, I think it's like anything. I mean, every team you got to start from scratch. You really do. I mean, the one thing I am optimistic about, and I am pleased with so far, has just been the want to and the work ethic, and and I think the guys understand that if they don't go out and they don't perform at a high level, somebody else is going to have their spot. And so there is that competition that pushes you forward and drives your program. And we have more of that across the board, probably this spring than we did last spring. And I think certainly will as we add more to the roster with a significant number of freshmen coming in, and probably a couple more transfers that arrive in the fall. So there's you want to build off of things, and there is some carryover, but at the same time, every team's different, and this team hasn't accomplished anything other than having 2 good practices so far. And so, that's the most significant thing this team has done, has been have a good Monday and have a good Wednesday. And so, all the stuff about this group will be written moving forward. But I do like, the work ethic and all that, and there is some carryover, but at the same time, you got to go out and do it every day. Today's over, and now the focus will be on learning from today and getting ready for Friday, and making sure we have a good day Friday.
You talked about slots, and it looks like Major Everhart was a little bit more involved today.
Yep.
10-3 guy out of high school. What's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I've been really pleased with Major. I think that group is really good. I mean, replacing Tay Barber and Darius Davis is not an easy thing to do. Those guys have played a lot of football, but when you sit down and you look at JoJo and Major and John Paul and Jordan, and I mean, that group all of a sudden is dynamic, and there's guys that have played a lot of football. John Paul and JoJo are proven guys. They've been in successful programs, and they've made plays in big games, and then you have the 2 young guys that are both real athletic and real dynamic, with Major and Jordan. So I like the room a lot. I think there's a lot of big play capabilities in the room. I like the consistent approach so far. So I've been really pleased with what I've seen. But I think Major has taken a big step. I think that's when you run 10 threes, you said, like Major does, the worst thing that you can do is think too much. You got to have a clear mind, and you have to play 10-3. And sometimes when you're thinking, you're 10-3, but you're playing 11-3. And so he seems like he's more clear-headed and more focused and more, settled in than he was last year. And as a result, I think he's playing faster.
Another noteworthy transfer name you brought in was Trey Sanders. Can you kind of speak to what you've seen from him?
Yeah, it's been good so far. I mean, I like what I've seen. It's the running back things are strange, because until you tackle running backs, you never really know what you have with those guys. And it's a little bit kind of like, Max Duggan showed us last year. He was kind of that way as well. Until you had to tackle him, there were times where he looked pretty pedestrian. Then you get him in a game, and somebody's got to figure out how to get him on the ground, and it's hard to do. And so we'll see with Trey. I like what I've seen so far. Again, he's eager. His effort's been really good. There's a mature approach about him. He kind of has that professional mentality. And so I like all that, and we'll see how he continues to progress as the paths go on and as we start to have to tackle him.
If you're the notable guys like Jalen and Jack haven't practiced, is that more precautionary, or is that something
Yeah,
that
I
just...
mean, both those guys were kind of banged up, and we knew it when we signed them. Jalen's probably, he's just as kind of gone from one injury to another. I don't know that he's played healthy football in a number of years. And so our thing is, look, this guy's played a lot of football. He brings a very dynamic, big play, potential style of play, to the table, and let's see what he can do if he can get healthy. And so both of those guys we're taking a slow approach with. Jack's kind of been the same thing. He's been, I don't know that he's been healthy in a long time. And so our goal is, look, let's get him healthy. Let's put that in the rearview mirror, and then we'll figure out, what we can do at that point. And so I would anticipate Jack to start to do more next week. And I think by the end of spring ball, my hope is that he's probably doing everything except contact, which if that's the case, I'll be very pleased with that. And so we'll just kind of see how it plays out.
Is there a takeaway from the title game that you've just thought about the last couple months that you've been wanting to implement this spring?
Not really. I mean, I think it's, the thing that, and I think you've got to be able to put everything in perspective, the good stuff, the bad thing, it's all, it all kind of, you have some time to reflect and you learn from it. I mean, the thing that our football team did last year was, I thought we played really, really good football for 14 weeks, winning football. We didn't turn the ball over, we didn't have any penalties, we played with confidence, we didn't play desperate, and one of those games, the 15th game, we did all those things. We turned the ball over 3 times in the first half. You know, so you did stuff that bad football teams do. We just did it on a big stage. Instead of doing it week 2 or 3, you know, we did it week 15. And so I think that's the biggest takeaway. And we did it against a really good team. And so, you know, those possibilities were in that team last year. You know, like I said, I didn't think we would play poor because we had 14 straight weeks of evidence that, you know, suggested we were going to play well. And the 15th game we didn't. And so that's, you know, our goal's got to be to moving forward to make sure that we have it within us to play well 15 weeks or 16 weeks or, you know, whatever it ends up being. And so that's the goal moving forward.
Coach, apologies if you talked about this Monday. Position changes, Garrett Hayes to D-line,
Yeah.
and Namdi to line.
Yeah. So Nandy's moved down. Yeah. So Nandy's taken over D's spot. You know, has looked really good. I mean, I think the good thing about Nandy is he's certainly got the size, the length, the athleticism to play that position. I think he understands coverage. He's natural in coverage. And, you know, he's real athletic. He can run. We'll see if he can play in the box. You know, that's going to be the one question that we have to answer. But from a skill set standpoint, he's what we're looking for at that position. So I expect him to, you know, to come in and really play well. Saw some good things on Monday. Didn't see as much today. Just didn't focus in on that today. So I'll go and look at the tape. But I was really impressed with that transition Monday. And then Garrett Hayes was a guy that wasn't getting a whole lot of playing time offensively, and you know, we have a little bit of a need at defensive end, and so and really on the front in terms of depth, it made sense for us to take a look at him. Garrett's a really good athlete. We'll try to take a quick look and see if we think that he's shown enough to be able to help us over there, and if not, then he'll transition back to offense and be a good player for us. But
are those the only two?
Those are really the only two.
Do you anticipate any more? Or?
Not right now. I mean, there'll be some subtle stuff. I mean, there'll be some guys maybe, particularly at the wide receiver position, that may get double trained, a little bit inside outside type thing. You know, John Paul Richardson's a guy maybe that comes to mind, but not right now.
And Madison is kind of focused on deep snapping.
He is, yeah, primarily. Yeah.
I was talking to Dean. A lot of these guys just look better.
Yeah.
Look bigger.
Yeah.
Jordan Hudson comes to mind.
It's good to see those guys. Yeah, you know, you can tell it's funny though. There's always a tremendous amount of growth from, you know, a first-year player to a second-year player. That's probably just overall. You know, I think that's where they grow the most physically. I think that's where their maturity improves the most. And you know, I think they obviously learn the nuances that make them good football players. A lot of times guys as freshmen just go out and play on ability, and so that other part of the game never really, you know, comes along until they get the number of reps that they have to get better, they get comfortable. Because a lot of times, you know, freshman players, sometimes they're really talented and they're out there playing, you know, but all they're trying to do is make sure they line up right, run the right play. And now they kind of learn how to do that, and all of a sudden it goes from, you know, there's kind of a different next step and next level of nuanced things that they do that improve their ball game and their ability to you know, to be a consistent player. And so, you know, he looks better physically. I think he's further along mentally. I think he's maturing. I think that Major kind of falls into that boat as well. You know, you just kind of look across our team, and a lot of those freshmen that played for us last year, you know, are starting to take that next step. You know, even a guy like Dom that started all 15 games for us as a true freshman, you know, you can start to see him do the little things that are going to make him a better player as well.
When you look at defensive end coach, you lost some pretty key guys.
Yeah.
How the young guys like Paul and Michael, because physically, I mean, they look the part. How are they coming
Paul
along?
and Mike, they're what you want physically for sure. You know, their deal is just going to be reps. You know, just getting the reps and getting the experience. You know, I think that they're both going to continue to mature. You know, they're kind of guys just like we talked about. I mean, last year it was just, let's try to put weight on these guys. Let's try to get them big enough to be able to hold the point and do what they have to do. And now, you know, they are big enough, and they're going to continue to get bigger. But they've made those huge strides that those young players make, and I think we're very excited about both of them. They're both very athletic guys, and they just got to learn to, you know, to be those grinders. You know what I mean? They both possess that kind of unique athletic ability, but they've got to be blue collar players as well. And so that takes time sometimes. But I'm pleased with what I've seen from both of them. They are both very willing. They both have a great work ethic. They're both very smart guys, and I think they understand what it takes to be successful.
For second-year players, how much do you think going so far last year might accelerate the maturity process going into this year, having just, you know, dealt with so much on?
Yeah. Oh, I think, you know, the big thing for me, and again, I think the big test for us was, you know, getting to the Fiesta Bowl and seeing, you know, playing against a team that had been there the year before and had played in big bowl games and had played in big games, and just see, you know, and playing against that team and finding a way to win, to me was a big step for us. You know, I worried a little bit about how our players would approach that game. You know, just, are they happy to be here? Are they, you know, and I wanted our players to have a good experience. I wanted to have fun, but most importantly, we wanted to win the game, and we felt like that we could strike a balance. And we talked to our players a lot about that, about, hey, look, we're gonna try to make this a fun experience for you, but when it's time to work, we need to work. And I was really proud of the maturity we showed doing that, and I do think that there is some carryover to this group. You know, I think it's a more serious group. I think there is a respect for, you know, the way we do things and why we do them, and an understanding that, you know, we're gonna have fun in our program, and guys are gonna enjoy playing, but at the same time, you know, we're gonna have to work hard, we're gonna have to grind, and it's gonna be tough, and striking that balance is always important, and I think those guys understand it better than they used to. So I think that's probably the biggest, you know, takeaway that I've seen from, you know, last fall to this spring.